We are here, of course, to confer this award on an extraordinary individual who over the last number of years has been creating a canvas of images that they give us an amazing image of this fascinating, iconic city, which shows us the depth of culture and individuals who inhabit New York City, and has captured the imaginations of millions across the world. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you tonight, Mr. Brandon Stanton.
Hey everybody. So am I mic'd up or am I just talking loud? I can do either. Okay, everybody can hear me, right? This is a cool room. Yeah. It reminds me, one of my favorite classes was English history. And yeah, it just kind of reminds me of those parliaments where everybody's just kind of shouting at you. Like, how dare you, you valley licker? I don't know. I was telling everybody, we had a little reception in the back room before I walked in, and I was like, this is my first time to Dublin, I'm embarrassed to say, to Ireland. And I was laughing. It's just like, yeah, you kind of always hear, stereotypes and kind of caricatures of people from different countries. I'm sure you guys have heard New Yorkers are rude or whatever, and they're very aggressive, and so you always try to kind of put those out of your mind and say, oh, everybody's the same. Then I flew in last night at 4:30, and I swear my taxi ride home, the guy was like, oh, fuck this, fuck that, fuck this, and then he go, oh, that's a nice pub right there, fuck this, that's a great place to get a Guinness, and I just oh my gosh, this is hilarious. So, yeah, so that was my ride home. So he said I could speak for as long as I wanted. So I've had a kind of very mixed success with public speaking. I feel like I'm kind of getting better. But yeah, recently I was on stage in Rochester, New York, and there were 1,000 people there. And they were paying me. I'm getting an award today, a little less pressure, because you guys, I don't have to fulfill a contractual obligation to do a good job. But yeah, right? So it'll actually probably mean it's going to be better because there's less pressure. But I was on stage and these people had flown me out there and they paid. And I'd given a few speeches at that point. So I thought I was confident. I thought I'd gotten pretty good at it. But then I just walked out and there were all these people and I kind of started talking. And you guys, this is, the nightmare situation that people just can dread. I could kind of hear my voice kind of start to shake. And I'm like, oh God, I'm getting nervous. Everybody's looking at me. And then when you start thinking about being nervous, you can't think about what you're going to say. You know what I mean? It's just every little thought that goes into you being nervous is taken away from giving a speech. And so it's this awful downward spiral. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm shaking. And all of a sudden, my voice was slowing down. And then just 2 minutes into the speech of 1,000 people, I just froze on stage. And I just said, oh my God, I'm so nervous. And it was they started clapping for me like I was a 3-year-old at a talent show. They're just you can do it. Yeah, you can do it. Oh, it was absolutely horrible. So if I freeze up, you guys can just start doing that and maybe I'll recover. But what I think it is about Humans of New York that is so special, and what it is that I think people can learn from it and why it makes it such an interesting subject is that I think that 10 years ago it couldn't even have been possible. It's just I'm a dude who's been photographing for 4 years. 4 years. Possibly, Humans of New York, I don't know, because 15 years ago, before 15 years ago, they didn't take that detailed of records, but arguably on its way to being the best-selling photography book of all time. And I've been photographing for 4 years. You know how crazy that is? And what that is a demonstration of how much society has changed because of the interconnectivity and because of the social media. Whereas now, somebody with a good idea and a willingness to work very hard can build something this massive in such a short amount of time because of how much information flows, how fast ideas flow. You know, think about what would have had to happen 10 years ago, 15 years ago, if I had the idea for Humans of New York and I moved to New York like I did with nothing, just this idea. I would have had to have worked as an assistant, then an apprentice, started to go to cocktail parties, you know, take all these very artistic photos. I don't even think they would have ever signed off on Humans of New York because it's not, you know, sexy or raw or controversial or provocative enough. You know, then I would have had to go to these cocktail parties, started rubbing shoulders with the editor of New York Magazine. Oh, this is this art critic. If he likes your stuff, you can get big. I would have been completely reliant on these gatekeepers, these tastemakers, to basically anoint me, to choose me, and say, you're good enough for us to present to a large audience. You're good enough because I validate you, then you're going to have a chance now to get an audience because I'm going to write an article about you, or I'm going to do this. And so it was very restrictive and it was very clubby. It was very clubby. And so basically, what all these tools that have come out now have just allowed you to basically go straight to your audience. And basically, you can build your own audience and distribute yourself without having to get the, you know, I'm sure people at the New York Times still, you know, a lot of them still think I'm a shitty photographer. I don't know, you know. I'm certainly, you know, not winning any awards, but, you know, Humans of New York is not about photography. It's new. It's very new. You know, it's about, some photography, but it's about these interviews. It's about this intimacy with strangers. That's what I think it's the most thing about. It's about intimacy with strangers. And so it doesn't really fit into a category. And so that's when I was talking with these people, you know, the people in the reception, that the reason social media is so amazing, even as a step over Google, is that it helps people find what they don't know they're looking for. They don't know they're looking for it. Like, for example, nobody goes to Google, not having heard of Humans of New York, and types in, guy walking around photographing people in New York and asking them questions about their dead relatives. You know what I mean? And it's just like, so what this social media has done is it allows people to find things that they don't know they're looking for. And I can see it on the street. Every time somebody comes up to me that's a fan of Humans of New York, I always ask, how'd you find it? It's always my cousin shared it, or my mom liked it, or, you know, my brother commented on one of your photos and I saw it. And so Humans of New York kind of spread through these channels and reached a lot of people who did not know they were looking for it. And that's something that's only recently been made available and even possible in the last 5 years. And so it's kind of a double-edged sword, though, because we have a society now where people can get their idea faster out there than ever before. People can generate an audience easier and faster than ever before. So what happens? Everybody's trying to do it. Everybody wants you to listen to their song. Just imagine when you log on to Facebook or Instagram. Got this feed coming down. Everybody in here, say we're the world. Everybody in here is battling for each other's attention. You know? Attention is a very limited resource, but everybody's got something that they want you to pay attention to. Listen to my song, read my short story, look at my latest blog post. And so you've got this noise where everybody is battling for everybody else's attention, and it's very hard to stick your head out above the crowd and start actually building kind of a firm foundation because there's so much noise. And, you know, I think Humans of New York managed to succeed in a very accidental way because I was a bond trader. I was working in finance and I lost my job. And so when I started Humans of New York, I didn't know much about blogging. I didn't really know what a blog was. I didn't know much about using social media to generate an audience. So when I started Humans of New York, I started it with the idea that I was going to take 10,000 portraits. It was like this big, chaotic goal. You know, I was going to take 10,000 portraits and I was going to plot them on a map in New York City. The interviews, The interviews weren't even a part of it at that time. That's why I moved to New York City. You know, all my friends thought I was crazy. My family thought I was crazy. I had zero photography experience. And I'm going to be a full-time photographer. I got this great idea. I'm just shoving my camera in people's faces and hit and click, you know, and it's going to be big. And so, you know, I moved to New York and I started doing this, and like, I was focusing not on how many followers I had, you know, and that's how everybody starts the day, and that's where they fall down. Is that they immediately want these followers. Their mind is, I'm going to create something and have 10,000, I want 10,000 Facebook fans or 10,000 Twitter followers. And instead, because I didn't really know about how social media worked, my stupid, it's stupid looking back, idea was, I am going to take 10,000 portraits, I'm going to complete this, and then I'm going to take this around to like newspapers and get press about it. I'm going to present it as a completed thing. When in reality, the secret formula is letting out a little bit of content every single day and having an audience, you know, gather up around that. I didn't know that at the time. And my goal was, I'm going to take 10,000 portraits, I'm going to complete it, and then I'm going to present it to people. And so what happened is, by the time I started figuring out about social media, I had already taken thousands of portraits. So when I started competing for other people's attention, not only the attention of people, but the attention of press too. You got to imagine, like the people that work as journalists are just like me and you know, logging into our Facebook news feed and having everybody trying to get our attention. They're the same way. They're just getting, in their form, it's just emails. Look at my idea, look at my project, look what I'm doing. Except here you had a guy, when everybody else was saying, look at this idea I have, or these 3 or 4 pictures I've taken, or these 3 or 4 songs I wrote. By the time I figured it out, I was like, oh, I've been walking around the streets of New York City for a year and a half. I've taken thousands of portraits. Thousands of portraits. And so my focus was always on the work. And by focusing on the work, this huge audience kind of evolved up around it, because I was somebody who really was not focusing on the promotion, but just producing. And in a world now where everybody is focusing on the promotion, that really stands out, to have somebody who's focusing on nothing but their work, because that's what's rare today. Everybody wants to be compensated for an idea because of how this society has emerged, and there's all these examples. I mean, New York is full of it. I can't tell you how many times I've seen this firsthand from friends, acquaintances. They call themselves artists. Oh, I'm a musician. I'm a photographer. I'm a writer. And basically what that means is writing 2 or 3 pieces and doing everything you can to promote it on social media. Or making 2 or 3 songs and doing everything you can to promote it on social media. That's become like the new definition of what it means to be an artist. And then just drink all night and sleep all day. Right? And it's like, that is the, that is the problem. And that's why they're not, having that success. Whereas if you gotta keep what you're doing in the metric of success anchored in the work. And that's the only way to kind of like move forward in this world of so much noise, is that if you're a writer, you can't focus. The only thing you can control is how hard you work. The only thing you can control is how hard you work. You can't control how many people are paying attention, how many likes you have, how many shares you have. The only thing that is within your control is how many portraits you take. How many portraits you take. And that's the only thing that was in your control. And so by focusing on that, by saying, I'm going to do this every single day, I'm not going to focus on how many people, I'm just going to make sure that every single day I take 5 or 6 portraits. Every single day. For 4.5 years I've done that. If you average out, closer to 4 years, if you average out the posts on Humans of New York, I mean, take 4, multiply it by 365, take the amount of portraits I've taken and divide it by that number, it's going to be over 6. Every single day, 6 portraits, because that's what I was focusing on. And what do you know? This giant audience rose up around me because they knew they could depend on me. They knew there was a guy that's every single day he was out there working, and he was doing work and doing work and doing work. And if every time they went, there was going to be new content. Every time he's out there finding new stuff. He's not just trying to promote himself. So I just focused on the work, and I told myself the moment I knew Humans of New York was going to be huge. After it started growing, it just started, the growth rate just started jumping. You know, oh, we're putting on 15 Facebook fans a day, now 150, now 25,000 a day. And I could kind of start to see, and you know, the emails start to come in. Brandon, come speak here. Brandon, come. You know, Brandon, come speak here. Brandon, come collaborate. Write in our magazine. You know, and the offers get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, bigger and bigger and bigger. You know, hey, we are. I'm gonna make it up. Vogue magazine will pay you this much to go to Paris for a week and photograph for us. And it's just like, oh, that's so prestigious. That'll make me look good. That'll bring a lot of attention. But that's not what got me here. Brandon, here's $30,000. Come to this conference for 4 days and speak. Yo, but that's not what got me here. Very early on, I knew that what was getting me here was focusing on the work, and I told myself, no matter how big this gets, the one thing I'm going to focus on is going out there and photographing every day. No matter how big it gets, no matter 100 new emails a day with all this stuff, that's not important. What's important is working on the photography every single day. And so that's been the foundation that I've based it on. And for 4 years, every single day, I've gone out there and I've taken 6 photos. And so, you know, if you guys have something you're trying to make big, whether it be a business or anything, don't spend the time trying to sell people on your idea. You know, ideas are cheaper than they've ever been. When somebody tells me they have an idea that's so good that they can't tell me, I laugh. You know, it's like, oh, good luck with that. It's like, seriously, you know, it's like people are so worried about their ideas getting stolen. Like, one good exercise, I read this in a book, it's like, okay, if you're a businessman and you have an idea that you think is so good that you're afraid of getting stolen, I dare you to try to call your competitors and get them to take your idea. Try it. No, they're too busy doing their own stuff. They're too busy with their ideas. So ideas are cheaper than they've ever been. So if you want to stand out in a world where everybody just wants to share their ideas and get credit for their ideas, be the person who focuses on the work. And you know, I think that's kind of a good little place to frame it, and I will take questions from anybody who wants to ask.